In poker, the definition of reverse implied odds are when chips that are paid to get to showdown with the losing hand that cannot improve. In other words, you're putting in more than you want. This typically can involve multiple streets and possibly a player's entire stack. In essence or simplicity, you're basically putting a lot of money in to defend a small pot, or potentially putting a lot of money in to defend a small pot. We're going to take a look at two examples of reverse implied odds here. First one we have in our hand is ace deuce of diamonds, and our opponent, well, they could have pretty much anything here. Now we're going to have some stacks here to start out with. I've got 110 for us, and I'm going to give our opponent a stack of 110. And to start the pot, the raise was to 5 pre-flop, so the pot's going to be 10. Now, okay, we have our hand against our opponent. Now we get a flop here. We have ace, king, queen, and we have top pair, so we decide to lead out for 10, about the size of the pot. And our opponent decides to raise us here. So we pull the 10s. Now we got 30 in the pot, and our opponent raises 30 more. Okay, if we're counting here, we have $95 left in our stack, and our opponent has just raised us. On this board we have top pair, no kicker. So we're kind of faced with a conundrum, and that conundrum is basically we could be risking this entire stack right here, or at least $30 of it, to defend this pot right here. And the reason why we're risking our entire stack here is if we want to defend our hand or get it to showdown, we have to call the flop raise. We might have to call the turn and the river for potentially the rest of our stack. And we don't have great holding. Now, what exactly can we beat that our opponent has? Well, we can beat a bluff. We could potentially beat a semi-bluff. But our opponent could also have a better hand, and we can't beat that. Now, what our opponent holds, let's say, for example, they have a flush draw here with a gut shot. Well, okay, we've got like around almost 50% equity, maybe 55% equity there. But we don't know exactly what our opponent has. We don't know what their range, their tendency, their batting patterns are. Now, if we know some of this, we can narrow it down, but we're still faced with a conundrum of having to call the flop, turn, and river for the rest of our stack with a holding that cannot improve, and it could most likely be a losing hand at showdown. And the situation's really kind of a conundrum, because if you really think your opponent's bluffing here, okay, you call, and then what if they fire a barrel on the turn? Do you give up there, or do you fold? Do you call again? And then if the river, you're faced with the same conundrum where you're risking your entire stack. Now let's take a look at another example here of a hand with reverse implied odds. Here we have King Jack of Diamonds, which is a pretty good hand, and our opponent has a 7 of Diamonds. Now let's say we have 150 stacks each, and we get a pre-flop pot of about $30, and the board comes out like this. We have top pair and a flush draw, which is a pretty strong hand in heads-up poker or multi-way poker. Now let's say the turn is the 3 of Diamonds. Well, normally that's a pretty good hand, but in this situation we have reverse implied odds, and that's because, okay, we have a 150 stack, our opponent has a 150 stack, so our stack is effectively 150 and the pot is 30, so we're potentially going to put in 5 times what the pot is with a hand that's second best. And that means we might have to call or check call, or if we raise, our opponent might put more money in on the turn and river with the rest of our stack. So in essence, we're risking all of this just for this little pot here. And in this second example right here, let's say we are really good and we can put our opponent on that specific hand because we don't know what they have. Even then, we're going to lose probably, $30, $40, $50, $60, $70, which may be close to half our stack or a third our stack. So reverse implied odds are something we want to try to avoid when possible. But once again, poker is challenging because players have different ranges, betting patterns, and tendencies, and you don't always know specifically what they're doing. And then there's the perception thing as far as what level they're thinking on in a specific hand. And this pretty much wraps up our 2 examples of reverse implied odds. Thank you for watching.